Hi, everyone. I'm Joseph Huberman, Vice President for Club Services, and I'd like to welcome you to the OUSA Monthly Forum. The presentations have a lot of detail, so you should change the following settings in Meet so you can see as much detail as possible. Click the three dots at the bottom, select Layout, and change it to Spotlight. Then select the three dots again, and then select Full Screen. And also, if you have messages up, you should hide the messages unless for some reason you need them. We have a great group of presenters. Besides myself, Mary Jones, Bruce Moore, Christina Lewis, Stephen Tylock, Paul Emerson, and Bob Putnam will each present a variation of an orienteering event they've directed. Each presentation is a little under 5 minutes, and we will have another 5 minutes for questions and discussions after the presentation. If you want to speak, please raise your hand and keep your microphone off until you're called on. This program is being recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, please turn off your camera and mic or leave the meeting. Okay, so the first person is Mary Jones. She's going to do the Explorer course. And Mary, you're up.
Okay. Sharing. All right, hello everyone. I'm Mary Jones, and I'm going to tell you about the Explorer course that we created at Orienteer, Kansas. What is the Explorer course? It replaces our intro or white course, and we use it at all of our woods events in the winter. It's an all controls score course. So any of the other courses, all the markers are there. We add a few extra controls around the start, finish, maybe some trail junctions, but not many. It's a staggered start with a 2-hour time limit. We tried an hour, but feedback was that people wanted to spend more time out there. So 2 hours is working well. Every control is worth 1 point, and you lose 1 point per minute that you're over time. So there are some negatives to using this course. One, because it's a score event and they're somewhat clustered close together, people tend to take the shortest route. And so they're taking really short route choices, 100 meters, 200 meters. So when they move up to the intermediate course and it's point to point, there's sometimes a little bit of a learning curve there. Sometimes people try to find a control that's beyond their ability because we do have the advanced course controls on there as well. And many people go out in a group, and that's great. We love to have groups, but they may only have 1 or 2 maps, and not everyone's really reading, and so they're not actually increasing their navigation skills very much. But overall, it's been a huge success for us because everyone feels successful. Even if you find one control and you come back, you've done something. We used to have people frustrated on the white course if it was their first time and they wouldn't know how to finish. Or couldn't find one and then what to do. So this is great. It's also good for other people besides first timers. We have older injured athletes that maybe are great at navigation, and so therefore they don't want to do a white course, but their physical abilities are limited. So now they can choose which markers to go to that may be a little more navigation challenge, but they know how to get there physically for their abilities. We used to have adventure racers coming for the first time, signing up for the advanced course and being out there for hours. Now we push them to the Explorer course, and as an adult, the name sounds better than intro, right? And so they love doing that, and they love the race as fast as they can and try to sweep all the controls. It's very good for families with small kids as well. Again, the intro or white course, sometimes if the kids were having a bad day and a meltdown, they would still feel they had to finish that course. But now you do 2 or 3 controls, maybe the kid has a meltdown or the weather's bad, you come around and you come in, but you've still done something. So it's a very easy entry into the sport when we encourage people in our registration forms. If it's your first time, sign up for Explorer. If you're an adventure racer, sign up for Explorer. We're a very small club with very few course setters, and so we don't want to burn out. And so it really helps to have one less course to sign. We don't have to do any Anything else, just Explore is put together, and we use the intro and intermediate and advanced. And overall, it's really increased our participation. We get 40 to 50% of our participants do the Explorer course, and our median attendance at winter events has moved from 40 to 53. Here's just an example of one. This is a good place to do Explorer for us as well, because this place has very few trails, but it does have other linear features. There's rock walls and lots of fields. So again, there's a cluster tending to be closer to the start finish, and people can find as many of these as they want in up to 2 hours. So that's the Explorer course. What questions do you have for me?
Are there any questions? I'm not seeing any hands raised. I think you did a good job. Aha. Okay, Gordon.
Yes, this is just an array of all the points on your point-to-point course?
Correct. Plus, we add maybe 1 or 2 extra that are, on a trail junction.
Okay, what would you suggest? We normally put out about 35 flags for our point-to-point events, and our SI sticks have a capacity of 30. So would you have an order in which you would eliminate some in order to get down to the SI capacity?
Yeah, you might want to eliminate the furthest from the start, right? Or if you have, depending on your technical level of your terrain, there might be some of the course controls on the advanced course that might be a little too hard for people to navigate to. So we have not run into that, but I see that point. But we do not usually have that many controls at our events.
What is your biggest audience? Is it the youngsters or the adventure racers?
It's families, I would say. Families or adults coming for the first time, not really adventure racers. Just first time people hearing about hiking or navigating. And, somebody told me this last weekend, they just Googled navigation training near me and popped up with our event.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I like the concept. I like the name, and just a few logistics to work out. Because if we can't use the all controls map that we have for our ordinary events, then that's one more thing to work around. But I really appreciate that. Thanks very much.
So Ellen asked, do you tend to tell beginners which locations are the easy ones?
Not always, but I do tell. Yeah, we say close together. Yeah, might be something we need to do better at, because I did have a few months ago come back saying, "Oh, we tried some and we couldn't find them." So I think it's something we could do better at.
You might use your numbers as codes. So the 30s are the easy ones or something.
Yep.
Claire, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering because you said you get a lot of first timers on this, plus families. My question is, do you have a lot of people? Do most people who do this do it every time, like they like this course and that's what they do, or does it really serve well as an entry and people move up from it?
I would say people who come just once or twice a year stay on Explorer. But people who come once and twice and try Explorer and really love orienteering and want to do it all the time, they move up pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we're ready for the next one. I'm presenting the next one. This was, oops, I have to share the screen. This is Fox Chase. Dave Waller always puts it on in our event. He does that annually. Fox Chase is a 90-minute score for advanced orienteers. The catch is that the Fox carries a required control, a control that must be punched after every other control to make the points count. However, the Fox's location can be predicted. Here's the Fox's route. The Fox carries the required control, number 40 in this example. Each circuit takes about 45 minutes. The fox walks a steady pace, so his location can be predicted. In this case, first clockwise and then counterclockwise. What appears like controls on this map are just the timing locations to help the fox stay on schedule. They do not appear on the competitor's map. Here you can see how the point value is dependent on the distance from the fox's path. The further from the path, the higher the point value. Remember, you must catch the fox and must punch the fox control after each point control. You don't get any points for the fox control. It only validates the points from the previous control. Here's an example of getting a few controls for points. We just started and we're going to control 11 worth 11 points. Back to the path to catch the fox. Now we have that 11 points. Off we go to get number 8, but we don't get those points until we get back to the fox. Catch the fox, validate the 8 points. Now we have 19 points. Run ahead of fox to get the 12-pointer. Back to fox to add those 12 points. Current score now 31. Run full speed to 25 and back to chase down the fox for a total of 56 points so far. These are the 2 tracks going out for controls and then getting back to the fox track and catching the fox over the 2 circuits of the fox for the 90-minute fox chase score course. That's it. Are there any questions? Claire.
So the fox is walking, other people are running. I guess I'm wondering about what range of technical and physical ability this ends up being appropriate for.
This is usually just for advanced, orange and above.
Okay, but like what about the people who typically walk the orange as opposed to running the orange? Does it still work for them, or do they end up being too slow behind the fox?
Well, a great example is Ruth and I ran the fox, and Ruth was injured. So she was walking, and what she did was she just picked up a couple of the highest point values and waited for the fox and intercepted him. And I had a different strategy. I tried to get as many controls as I possibly could without worrying about point value, and Ruthie beat me by a point.
Okay.
So,
all right, thanks. I'm also seeing that, right, you could also maybe take a strategy of get like 8 and 11 and meet the fox on the other side or something.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But only the 11 would count.
Ah, I see. Right. Okay.
But you could pick up the fox, you could pick up a control, wait for the fox, and then go across to the other side and be way ahead of him and pick up another big control.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, Bruce, it looks like you're up.
Hey everybody, my name is Bruce Moore, Orienteering Louisville. I'm going to talk about Chase the Rabbit. And at that little screen right there, that's little Ian Dunlap, about 4 years ago. He's grown a little bit. So the Chase the Rabbit is basically a handicap race where we try to calculate everybody's score and give them a handicap start so that everybody finishes at the same time. And we don't use the timing. We use the timing. We use sport ident and finger sticks. We don't count your time. We count whoever finishes the finish line first, second, third, so forth. We do check the E punches for miss punches. And if you do miss punch, you're out. But the whole idea is try to get everybody involved and everybody gets a chance to win. How we figure out the start time is we've come up with a SLOCO formula that Ben King developed. And the idea is to use that calculation based on 15 to 18 races that we run during the summer sprint season. And actually, it works really well. It's a very close race, and we just never know who's going to win it. Here you can see how the slow coal works. I'm not going to go into the formula because I really don't know how it works anyway. But there's an hour difference usually between the start or the first person and the last person. Here in this list, you can see Ryan Dunlap at the top, but he'd actually be starting last. At the bottom, you can't see it here, but the bottom would be probably about an hour ahead of him. So incredibly, on a 3K course, you'll have an hour difference between time, but yet there's still a very close finish at the end. And this right here is a typical course. We'll try to do a little loop so everybody crosses or starts, and then about halfway through the race, they come through the start again to see where everybody stands. And here we have a little video. Okay, where is it?
You're sharing your you're not sharing your presentation screen right now.
I'm not?
You're sharing your speaker notes. It's on a different screen.
Sorry about that.
So you have to go Alt-Tab and you'll find it.
Where?
Well, it's either you can go Alt-Tab or you can look up at the tabs on the top of your screen and find it.
See it now?
No.
Bruce, I think you might stop sharing this and reshare the whole window, the
Okay,
whole
I'll
screen.
do that.
No, you're sharing your speaker notes again. Bruce.
Yeah. I'm here.
You just raised your hand.
All right. See it now?
Yes. That's it.
All right. Sorry about that. Let's try it again. All right. So I'm going to skip that. I was trying to get the video. Here it is. You see the video?
Yep.
All right. So here's a sample of the race. This is from 2020. It's going to go pretty fast. I sped it up. It's only a minute and a half long. And you can see the first people right here starting out very slow. This is not GPS, but it is based on their start time. And basically, everybody kind of clusters up in the middle. And hopefully, at the end, if you're there as an audience, you can see everybody finishing right about at the same time. Usually we get a lot of cluster in the middle, and sometimes we have somebody that we didn't expect to win, and we have a little problem because sometimes people go out with their dogs or they might be injured during the season, so their slow co is a little bit off, and they get a little bit of a jump with the start, and it doesn't end up really good that way. But the first season we did it, everybody finished within 2 minutes of each other. And then we've had a few outliers since. But as you can see, this one was pretty close. Everybody clustered up. It's a real good opportunity for people who don't normally get a chance to win, to actually get a chance to win. And it's getting very popular. And some people who had never actually won get to be in the spotlight and win awards. And the elapsed time is never published. Only whoever wins first second, and so forth. All right. Any questions? None? Yes, Paul?
Yeah. How long is the actual course?
Well, it's a sprint course, so we calculate the time to be won about 18 to 20 minutes. So
All right.
I'm not sure. That course is probably 3 to 3.5K.
Okay. Right.
And it doesn't take very long, but normally the person starting first will take about an hour or maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And to answer Mary's question, she asked about how many races it takes to calculate an accurate time. The more the better, but we have about probably 15 for most of the people. But the problem we have is when somebody is new, or maybe they have one race, so we have to sort of guess, and sometimes that backfires. So we're trying to change up a little bit so we don't get those outliers, and hopefully, it should. And the calculation works just well. If somebody makes a mistake, they're going to finish behind. If you run a perfect race, a really good one, you should be competitive. No matter how slow or fast you are. Anybody else?
Okay, Christina, now you're up.
All right. Let's get going. All right, I'm going to talk about a format called a peg race. This is not a format that we invented. It's pretty old. It's probably older than I am, and I'm older than you think I am. So it's been around a while. But I haven't seen it used a lot, and we've used it a couple times in the club. It's basically a self-handicapping mass start race, which means you don't have to do any calculations. You don't have to have a chart based on like age and gender. Everyone just runs the same course, and as you run, faster people will end up running more. So basically, the concept is you have a point-to-point course, and some of the controls, somewhere close to half, have pegs or clothespins, is what we usually use, on the controls. And you can see a picture here of a regular control with a bunch of clothespins pinned on it. If you get to a control and there are pegs there, you must take one. You can clip it to your shirt, and then you have to run to an extra control. And in this way, the faster people will end up having to run more because they'll get to controls first. Usually you have about a third of the number of runners. That's how many pegs you'll use. And the idea is that the person with the most pegs at the end is the winner. So you want pegs and you want to run more. For an example of a course, let's just go straight to the whole map. I already have it up. This is a peg race we did a couple of years ago in a very small park. This was a good way to use that park. And you can see that it's a regular point-to-point course, 1, 2, 3, 4. But starting with number 3, there's an extra control with dashed lines, in this case labeled 3A, that also goes to 4. And then you have a 4A going to 5 and a 5A going to 6. So at each of these controls, 3, 4, 5, there are clothespins. So the first runners to appear or to get to number 3 will take a clothespin and move on to 3A before going to 4. Everyone else, the rest of the crowd, will go straight to number 4. And we can actually see that in action. I think most of the faster folks had their tracking on. So we've got this lead crowd coming into number 2, and you'll see that the first 5 or 6 are going to go to 3A, whereas the rest, now everyone else who's come, we're out of pegs, they've got to go straight to 4, and some of them are going to beat these last ones here, sending them on to 5. So what's happened is that the very fastest runners at this point have 2 pegs, but we've also got a whole bunch that have each have 1, right? So over the course of the race, lots of people get to be in that lead pack and get that feeling of being towards the front. And yeah, at the end, it's just whoever's got the most. Let's see. I have a few quick things. I use a relay course in Purple Pen to design this. One variation has the extra controls, one variation doesn't, and then you print an all variations map. That's it. Everyone has that map. It's good. You just cut the lines. I mentioned 1/3 of the number of runners. That could change depending on a lot of factors, how fast, how variable. If you have like a really big difference in speed, maybe you want to have a lot more pegs. It doesn't really matter. You could have 18 pegs and 20 runners. And I do have, if anyone's ePunch, you can just use a score course and you make the pegged controls, extra controls worth a point. And that way you get your results just done exactly how you need it to be. Most number of pegs and then by time. That was a super quick explanation. So if anyone has any questions, I will definitely answer them. Oh, look at all those.
John, you have a question?
Just curious, how common are ties?
Well, it's by time, right? It's pegs and time. So
okay.
you definitely get a bunch of people who, I want to say for the one we did one a couple months ago, and this is actually an example, I would say, of a poorly designed peg race. I designed it. I'm allowed to say this. It was poorly designed because the peg controls are not consecutive very often. So we had a couple runners who were really fast, and so they managed to get all of the pegs, and they were never not in the lead, basically, or at least very close to it. But still, one of them is first. One of them gets to the finish before the other. We only one finish punch, and it wasn't air enabled, so only one of them gets to be the fastest.
Claire.
Yeah, so my question was, do you usually put the same, at the controls that have pegs, is it usually like the same number at every one, or have you played games with like varying the number of pegs based on how the course is designed or anything like that?
Yes, I've not been scientific about it, but I did vary the number of pegs here. I think what I did was just to think about when there weren't consecutive controls with pegs, have more pegs, right? So if like number 1 here has a peg, but then there isn't another one until 4. So have a lot of them. Number 1, like half the field is doing this extra control, and that gives more people a chance to stay ahead of, to say in peg land, up until to number 4. But I mean, I think there's infinite ways you could do this, and it's one of those like just for fun. I will I had a suggestion the last time we did this. I had some friends who just hike, and they said they were really sad they didn't get any pegs, and they suggested having a different color and having like a hiking class. And people who were only going to be walking would then take like the blue pegs, and they would have their own chance to be involved in the race. So all those things are possible.
When you said you use 1/3 of the controls, 1/3 of the runners per peg for pegs, is that at each control?
Yes.
Okay. And then my second question is, do you check that someone who's got a peg, picked up a peg, that they actually did run the extra course, or did they just pick up a peg?
I don't actually count the physical pegs because we just use their SI readout.
So someone could essentially cheat and just run straight through and pick up pegs without doing the extra controls.
But then we don't count the physical pegs. They have to actually visit the controls and punch them.
And look at the results.
So
they can see if they went to 4.
Yeah,
so they have to punch with their SI at 1A, and that is a point in the ePunch system.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah. So someone could do the opposite. They could arrive at a control and there are no pegs left, and they could decide to do it anyway and get the point. But chances are they're going to be slower than anyone else who actually got the pegs. So Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see. I got that confused. I thought you
And-
just added pegs at
yeah.
the end. No, I
So-
see.
Yeah. John Torrance has asked, there's no reason there couldn't be more than one control and a fork before you rejoin the baseline course, is there? And right. You could make as much as you wanted between 1 and 2. You could have several controls, 1A, 1B, 1C. I've also seen this done where you run to a control and then back to the same control. So you're running literally like almost like a penalty lap. But I think it's a little more interesting to have extra in between.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Stephen. Oh, Alex, you raised your hand?
Yeah, I was just saying, do you generally keep all the controls kind of the same difficulty, like, or do you also sometimes the extra controls are also a little more difficult?
Good question. Also, I've seen a couple people ask about mass start. Yes, this is definitely a mass start. This is real. This is what it looked like. As far as difficulties, in the cases where I've used this format, they've been at parks where it's not really possible to set advanced level control. Like the legs are all intermediate, and that's part of the appeal, is that like everyone in our club can do it as long as they've been out a couple times. I probably do think about making the extra ones a little harder, because those are going to be the faster folks who can probably handle it. But yeah, you could do it if you have enough advanced orienteers. It'd be fun to do it more advanced, but we don't. So we have do it in a small park with lots of intermediate attack points.
Okay. Anyone else? John suggested that you could have more than one control in the fork before you came back too. You wanted to really nail those really fast runners. Just a couple of pegs there, and then okay. Stephen, I think it's up to you now.
And apparently the theme tonight is how to get the most out of your small parks, having mass start events, trying to line up the finishes to get some more excitement there. And this version on that is trying to do so by having the courses run across each other. Because usually we're out there by yourself in the woods with nobody around. But if you can have it differently, that can be another way to go. So on an event that might otherwise be a score-o with a small park or a park that doesn't have a lot of challenge, mass start, mass finish, social so that everyone can have fun, and challenge for all levels. Part of the impetus for this was you're going to have your white, yellow, orange, less experienced out there with the advanced, and we still want to have a challenge for all. This is a variation on a Thomas event, if you know of that. And so the design of the event is all of the courses are going out in the same direction, mingling controls that they might not otherwise, so that everyone is seeing everyone else come through. This is everything laid out on top of each other. So let me build it up for you. First, a white course. How far can people walk in an hour and have a reasonable time without getting lost, so that your less experienced orienteers could go out and have a fun time? Put on top of that yellow, a little bit farther, a little bit trickier, but sharing the same kind of a path that white did. Orange, one step further removed. Orange is more like part of white, part of yellow, and orange. Then, taking it out from the extreme, send your blue across all of that, but they go farther and come in at the end. The intent on this one is that they were going to head out to the far reaches of this park while everyone else did a shorter loop, and then the blue would come back across everything that was going on previously. Green then is shorter than blue in the same footprint, sharing some controls, but not all. Or red, now green, same thing. And brown having the same path and track as the orange, but slightly harder controls. One of the problems of a Thomas event is by having a box of handicap, the handicap number for an inexperienced competitor is about the same as a brown competitor. And so it doesn't give a lot of challenge to the advanced competitors that just simply can't go running, 6 kilometers in an hour. Okay, putting it all back together, now you can see how the right-hand side was the way out, the left-hand side was the way in. The intent is to have everyone have the same expected finish, fastest finish, slowest finish. And for the course that I showed you, this is the result of what happened. And you can see that the green, red, and blue were all about 10 minutes slower compared to what we wanted. And so the optimizing part is how to design a course that has a 50 to 60 minute expected time for every level without putting somebody in stress. And then I also have, you're hiding on top of my screen. I have a route gadget of this exact event that you can see. Everyone goes off, they come together, they're doing different things around, but they are still generally in the same area. And so as a mass start, there is following, but if you're following and or get sidetracked by somebody that just happens to be near the same control you are, that can be less fun. And I have repeated this a couple times, getting better on having the events, the different courses matched up in time. So what do you think? And any questions? Yes, Claire.
What size group are you typically doing this with? It seems to me that if there were very many people, you'd have way too many packs.
This particular event was the day after we had done a larger, I think a national event, and so it was a day off of, and I think we had about 70 competitors here. For our local events, we can have from 30 to 50, right? So we may have 5 to 8 on every course, and the packs are okay in our environment in the sense of those people usually see each other, and they're all trying to outstep someone by saying, oh, I'm going to get from this course, this point to that point, by this other way that you're not going to think about, and attempting to lose them that way.
Okay.
And as you can see on this particular map, there is no place in this park that is more than 100 meters away from a road or a path. So again, it's using a park that otherwise wouldn't have a great event anyways. And because it's got a limited time, it's useful for a summer event that you want it. Maybe we do those during the week, that we want them to be from 6 to 7 so that we can get in and out of that park.
Are there any other questions? Okay, Paul, you are up with, what happened to it? The reveal.
Could you do the presentation from your end, please? Thank you. This is a format that was designed to kind of spice up the score event. So it's a traditional score event, but the map that the runners receive at the start would only contain about half the controls. The rest of the controls will be revealed to the runners during the race. For instance, 5 out of the 30 will be so-called reveal controls. The runners would not know the location of the reveal controls. When the runner arrives at one of these controls, they would find a small map which will reveal the locations of 3 to 5 additional controls. They will be able to take away a copy of this new little map, or if all the maps have gone, they can copy the location of the reveal controls on their master map and then continue the race. Next one.
One comment to make.
Why is it not going down?
So we run it twice.
Little
In woods, 250, 300 acres, runners for orange standard and above. In the first year, we had a 60-minute time limit, mass start, No one managed to visit all the controls. Last month we tried it again. This time we had an 80 minutes time limit, and there was no mass start. You just go when you wanted to. 2 people managed to visit all the controls. That's all the controls on the map and all the controls that are on the little revealed maps. And 2 only missed 2 controls. What we did was, on the second time, we put the revealed control descriptions on the bottom of the map so people didn't have to copy those in the event there was no small maps. And we're due to do another one of these in a larger forest later this spring. Next one, please. So this is the map that we did a month ago. Now the reveal control sites are the ones that are highlighted in red. Now the map that the runners were given didn't have these highlighted, so they wouldn't know which ones were the control sites, the reveal control sites. Along the bottom, you've got the control descriptions and the scoring points for the sites that would be revealed. We did this so you didn't have to copy out the little maps if they run out. Next one. Now, this just gives you an example of the map. So if we take the top one, so site 41 was a reveal control. At that control, it has a little map, and they were given the little map you see in the blue circle of 4 extra controls. And you can do those in any order, or you can do 1 or 2. You don't have to do them all. And in fact, the next one that they show, an example that we show, is site 44, where in this case there were 3 sites additionally shown. This proved to be the one that made all the difference to whether people got round or not. 2 reasons. One was, as you see, site number 69 is on the opposite side of the valley. The 2 smart people who got round, what they realized was that they did those later on. So they did the two revealed sites below, 67 and 65, and then went on to do those sites further south and round, and then came back to number 2, site 69, at a later point. So that actually, they were able, you don't have to do all the controls on your little map straight away. You can leave them for later. And that's how it worked. We had a situation here on this one, though. Site 43 on the left-hand side, just above the start finish, was originally going to be a reveal site, having all the controls that are there in the top left-hand corner. But we think that's not a good idea. First of all, there wasn't enough normal controls near the start and finish, and B, no one would have used it. People coming back to the finish usually are looking to pick up 1 or 2 controls on their way back with only a minute or so to spare. So it will be unfair to give them 5 or 6 extra controls to do. One thing to think about, though, is to make sure that because it's a random event, finding in these reveal controls, 5 out of 13, shall we say, you want to make sure that even reasonable runners will have the chance of picking up at least 2 or 3 of these reveal sites. So you don't want to too close to the start. On the other hand, you don't want them all to be way at the far end of the forest. So it's a kind of spread them out a bit, but make sure that even the slower runners or less experienced runners get a chance to visit 1 or 2 of these reveal sites. And the last one. Everybody seemed to like the format, so the time limit becomes a compromise between giving enough time so that elite runners will attempt to visit all the route controls. They need to think that they can do it, and then runner fatigue for those who are less fit. You don't want people to be out there too long. We thought half or less of all the controls to be on the master map, so there's a more chance that a participant will actually choose a reveal control. 5 reveal controls is about right, we think. We had 1 mass start, 1 not, so it's more a case of admin ease. for me as an organizer, I preferred having a non-mass staff. It eased the workload. And that's about it, really. Any questions?
What do you think about the ability to tell people that these are the reveal controls so that they don't just accidentally miss one and then don't have a chance to get those points?
Yes, I mean, it's always a bit of, it's always, the swings and roundabouts on this. On one hand, otherwise it becomes a little bit of a lottery. So if you know that 2 or 3 of them are reveal controls, and they would be marked like I've marked on the map there, then perhaps it would be fairer in the sense that you would the certain amount of the lottery that goes into just by chance you've chosen to go to a control, and that happens to give it 5 more. If you'd gone to another one and gone there, you'd only got 1 more. So yes, I mean, I'm not. I can see both sides of the argument on that one.
Matt, you had a question?
Yeah, maybe you could make people pay for it with time or something. 5 minutes and you get to see 1 reveal. 10 minutes you get to see 2 or something.
Yeah. It's
Claire. Oh.
Well, I just want to say one of the most exciting things that ever happened to me was I was at an event that was kind of like this, where as you hit controls, you learned more about the course. But one of the things that you didn't know was how many points things were going to be worth. So you knew where some circles were, but not points. And then you'd get to a control and learn, oh, this one's worth so many points. So you could potentially get to a control and not know how many points it was worth. And then some of them were negative.
Oh, no.
So you had to choose, am I going to punch this or not based on what I know? And I was excited because I actually beat Eric Bone at that event. I won. I won because I only punched things if I knew they were positive regardless. And it was a really interesting thing. I mean, it was a lot of it was just luck, because if you ran into something and chose to punch it without knowing what it was, you didn't know if you were getting points or not, or if you were losing them. But it was fun.
How did you know what the point score was before you actually punched it?
So for example, at the start, you got a map that showed 3 or 4 circles. And then you also got some clues that said things like, well, control number 40 is worth X number of points, and control number 42 is worth this number of points. But those weren't the same ones that you had the circles of. So then when you went to a circle, there would be more information there. Okay, here's a few more circles, and here's some more information about how many points certain controls are worth. So when you got to a control, you would look at your list of what you knew and say, do I know how many points this one is worth? Oh, I do. Okay, I'll punch that one or not.
Oh.
And so you also might do something like run to a circle, get information from it, say, oh, I don't know how much it's worth, run away, go to some other controls, and then find out, oh, that was worth a lot, run back to it and hit it. And yeah, it took a lot of strategy.
Ian, I think you're next.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I worked with Paul on this event, and having the 13 controls or so on the base map, people who went out and weren't particularly good essentially limited themselves to that. But I don't think anybody did not actually ever see a reveal map somewhere. Whether they took any of those controls or not was a second choice. The other thing, interestingly, we debated about whether we should have a 75-minute time limit for this, and near the end of our planning, we decided to up it to 80 minutes. And it turned out that the guy who won came in 75 minutes and some seconds afterwards, and the next one was like 77 minutes. So we hit the time right for that. But had it only been 75 minutes, nobody would have cleared the course. Was that close?
Okay. Any other questions on this one? And now, Bob, are you here? Bob Putnam.
Is he leaving it for you?
Yeah, I guess he didn't show up. Okay, I worked on this to work with him to help him with this, and so I'm going to do it because it's a pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting one. Uh-oh. Okay. So this is maze orienteering, and it's not like running a corn maze. In maze orienteering, you need to figure out where the walls are in the maze. Each control corresponds to one of the boxes in the maze. At
Joseph?
Yeah?
You're not sharing.
Oh, well, that's a problem. I thought it was sharing. Thank you for that. How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So, at each control is a clue that tells you which other boxes it connects to. So some boxes connect and some boxes don't. So you need to visit the controls to get the clues to build the maze before you begin punching controls. Finally, when you find the path through the maze, you run the hidden course and punch those controls. So to start, you have a map with all the controls and a grid that will become the maze. As you visit the controls, you can build the walls between the squares. First, you treat it like a regular score course, but as you gain information, you become more strategic in the controls you visit. So we start navigating to some close controls to get the first clues. No punching yet. First, we go to 10. The clue reads that you can only go to 9 and 11. So we draw barriers to show that from 10, you can go to 9 or 11. At 4, the clue reads 8. So we put up a barrier showing that 4 can only go to 8. Then to 15, no walls, but now we know the finish. We add a wall to the top of 11 here. Then 14 can only go to 15. Now we know the start and the finish, but we don't know if we go over to 5 or 8 on our way to 15. 9 blocks access that way around. There's no new walls for this one. And all we need to know now is the clue for 12. So we go to 12. And now looking at the maze, we can see that the path must be start 3 to 2, then 6, 7, and 8, finally 12, 11, 15, and finish. So now that you've figured out the hidden course, you return to the start and run the hidden course, this time punching the controls. And that's it. Open for questions.
Thank you, Joe. That was better than I could have explained it.
Ah, you are there.
I just came on.
Oh. Okay. I guess we're open. We have a little bit of time left. Oh, wow. We really nailed it on that one. Are there any questions? Christina.
I have more of a just a comment, an observation. I think some of these formats are pretty interesting and fun, and I think I like using something like a peg race when we do like a Canada Cup thing sometimes too in our smaller parks. I think it's important though that we all remember that orienteering is really fun. The way like just a regular orienteering course is really fun, and especially beginners, they just want to orienteer. Like they don't necessarily need all these things. So I think it's cool that we try different things to keep orienteering exciting, especially in small parks. But I hope that we all go back and just offer lots of orienteering and not get too worried about all these different formats. And so a shout out to Mary's Explorer format, because that's the one on here that actually I think helps us spread orienteering to more people and not be more confusing than it might already be.
Point well taken. Bruce.
Hey, regarding that reveal maze, have you done that, or is that just a concept? Because I wasn't sure if you'd actually.
I've done two of those. One at DVOA back in the 80s, and another one here
back in the
back
80s.
in the 90s. Now we started Florida Orienteering in 1991, and after about 3 years, I thought things are getting stale. I'll have to juice it up a little. Well, that was 30 years ago, so I haven't done it since.
So it hasn't
hasn't
been done
gotten
since.
stale since.
So the last time it was used was the 90s?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
Any other general comments? Claire?
I'm just going to say, I know this wasn't in here, but you know, in thinking about easy ways to make something a little bit different, one of the things I've done a number of times in a small park is to do a Scoro, and to do a mass start just to make it easy, but then to put a tag on every control so that the first person who gets to each control gets to rip that off, and that's worth some extra points. Because that kind of encourages people to take different routes from the start, because they'll be able to get, you know, if they're just all going the same optimal route, they won't, then only the person in the lead will get the tags.
Good idea.
It kind of splits people up a little bit.
Chip.
Hey guys, I really appreciate you putting this on. This is a lot of fun listening to all the different ideas. I come from an adventure racing background. Couple things. One is I also come from an entrepreneurial background. One is, with all of these amazing ideas, keep in mind, what is the problem you're trying to solve? Some of you are trying to solve the problem of entry-level adventure racing, entry-level orienteers having fun in the sport. And some of the other you are asking, like, how do we make it more complicated, harder, and more challenging? And so, in another aspect, you could look at it and say, are we making it easier or harder on the volunteers, the ones that are out setting the points, creating the maps, and taking down the controls? I personally, I don't like mass starts, just because, like, I want to be out there on my own doing my own thing. I don't want to have 100 other people. I don't want to be following people and all of that. So just keep in mind what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and then try to nail it so that you've got both things for the entry-level racers and things for the racers that want increasingly complicated puzzles to solve. So I'm kind of in the camp of Christina, where it's like, you know, don't overcomplicate it, and also, you know, don't I don't know, we need the entry-level folks to get involved as well. So thank you so much for putting this on, and this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that you know, to get to that point, I think that some meets can be for entry-level people, but then some meets can have this more complicated formats. But you can always have a white course. Even if you're having a complicated format for the advanced people, you can still have a white course that people can take. And I think one of the themes that came across was mass finishes, which is an interesting concept. There were like 3 different variations that attempted to get mass finish. You know, all the way from having slightly different courses that you're pegging people to. I guess I shouldn't have used that word. Then using the pegs to get people finishing at the same time. And finally, the more scientific analysis, statistical one, where you use previous times from people. So that seemed to be one of the themes from this presentations. Any other comments from anyone on anything here? Okay. Well, thank you very much. This was really great, and we even finished on time. So that's pretty spectacular. Thank you all very much, and I guess we'll see you next month.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.